Welcome to day 30 of Festive Tech Calendar 2023, or it will be day 30 when you're watching this. It's currently day 15. So thank you to Gregor Schutte and Richard Hooper and the entire org team over at Festive Tech Calendar for, this must be what, the fourth or the fifth year that they're running this. So awesome initiative, and glad to be taking part again. So this year, and Dean, you're going to put a link for me down here or over here or up here somewhere for the fundraising for the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So the Raspberry Pi Foundation is a global nonprofit with a mission to help young people learn how to code, how to create and solve meaningful problems with technology. So I'm your host, Karl Cooke. You can see me on the socials there. And our session is titled Securing Tomorrow, so Cybersecurity Visions for 2024 and beyond. It'll be a roundtable panel discussion featuring some folks that you can see on screen here who are very active in the Microsoft security community. So I'm just going to jump into a couple of introductions, and apologies, gents, if I leave anything out, you can correct me or add to it when I'm done. First off, we have Charlie Gough, who is Microsoft MVP in the security field. He's a senior cloud security architect, user group organizer, and general community contributor. Next, we have David O'Brien, who is the founder of Argus Cloud Security. He's a former Microsoft Azure MVP for 9 years straight. Great achievement. Regular speaker at conferences and community events with focus on cloud and security. He's a pilot of over 20 years, and he loves to travel the world in his spare time. And also he likes to lift weird and heavy things, he said in his introduction here, so fair enough. Then we have our friend Dean. Dean Ellerby. So Dean is a dual Microsoft MVP. Is that enterprise mobility and security, Dean?
Yeah.
It's nothing like being greedy, is there? And he's an organizer at the Workplace Ninjas user group UK. He releases a few Microsoft-related YouTube videos every month, and he's threatened me with violence if I don't say that he's generally an absolutely lovely person to be around. So thanks, gents, for joining us.
That is true. We're not being held hostage.
Blink twice if Dean's threatened you. So, gents, do you want to add anything to the introductions that I've given you already? It's great to have you all here, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion.
Thank you. All good.
No, all good. Thank you.
For hosting.
Awesome, no problem. So I will probably not be doing most of the speaking tonight. If I am, something's gone wrong. Looking forward to hearing your insights into the security field and what you think 2024 and beyond, because the vision can't just be for the next year. You've got to be thinking way out ahead in the future. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you think is coming up in the next year or two, and hearing your thoughts on big topics of the moment. And let's get straight into it. No topic bigger currently than AI. So I think we'll go to you first, David, if you don't mind. What do you make of the whole AI, million co-pilots for everything, and how that's going to impact the security field in the next year or so?
Yeah, AI. It's obviously a big hype at the moment, right? I mean, Microsoft invested lots of billions of dollars into OpenAI, and not just Microsoft. Google is doing it. Google acquired Mandiant just to get that security expertise into their portfolio, and they developed SecPan 2, or specific security LLM that they just put into GCP. There's so much hype happening at the moment. You don't really know where it's going to go. With all that hype. What I've actually just put into a different blog article that's not AI related at all, or maybe it could be, about logging and monitoring and observability. It's the whole poo in, poo out thing, right? If you don't know what to ask the AI, you're not going to get a good answer, but you're going to get an answer, right? And that's the thing. I think we need to understand that AI isn't going to magically solve problems that you didn't know anything about before. So you really need to understand what to ask the AI and how and with what specific words. That's the whole prompting. Otherwise, it's just not going to help you.
So are we just going to become prompt engineers, Charlie?
No, I don't think so. I think my view on it with Microsoft Security Copilot primarily, if I take that view, obviously it's exactly what it says on the tin, a Copilot. It's there to kind of assist. It's not going to take away the SOC analyst's jobs. It's going to make things easier over time, is my view on it. Mainly on the basis that actually it's the same as autopilot on a plane. You still need those hands on the controls to a point, because fundamentally you need those human eyes. You need that human kind of intuition to it. Will it improve over time? Yeah, but it's going to take ages to get to that level of thinking, and I don't think well, who knows whether we'll get Skynet within my lifetime, but I don't think we'll ever be in that situation logically. And I just feel kind of understanding the problem engineering is going to be really critical moving forward. And it's also kind of how you secure that AI as well, because that's going to be the next a big attack vector, really, is targeting those large language models.
So how do you secure AI? What's the thinking around that? Or let me rephrase that. How do you secure company X's use of AI?
So I think there's an element of looking at kind of the big one at the moment is ChatGPT. Organizations are using ChatGPT already, and they're not utilizing. It's not necessarily enterprise grade, so they're putting enterprise data into ChatGPT, which obviously can pose a significant risk. So using things like Microsoft 365 Copilot or Copilot for Microsoft 365 is going to be key, but obviously there's the risk around that. If you haven't got your data in check with compliance and security, what's that going to actually expose to your users, potentially?
So this maybe leads into a follow-up question.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And we're jumping over Dean here, but
well, I was about to direct my next question at Dean, so
that's fine. I can wait.
But the I know we're technologists, but I don't think that the first step to securing AI is actually a technology thing. It like you said, Charlie, with ChatGPT, we need to understand from a terms and conditions, like actual text and law and legal aspect, what is our data used for, right? If we put something into those UIs, whatever they are, what is going to happen with that data? And that eventually is going to be about securing the LLMs, the underlying LLMs eventually. If the data that we put into those UIs, into the prompts, is going to be used to train future models, then sure, then that company maintaining that LLM needs to go and make sure that the data that was put in is actually legit. But from our enterprise and any other organization, not just enterprise point of view, we need to know what is going to happen to our data. If I go and put M&A data into ChatGPT to go, hey, ChatGPT, can you help me understand this merger and acquisition document, this offer? And it's not going to happen, but a year later, somehow it ends up in the actual model. That can be a problem, right? And with all these co-pilots at the moment, and transparency, I have no idea what the terms and conditions for the co-pilots are, but I know, for example, Amazon Q or AWS Q, they specifically say they train on the inputs. So you need to be aware of what happens in all of these little pop-ups in your portals that are going to come up very soon. If you go and ask it something, what's going to happen with that?
So, yeah, that leads nicely on to the sort of sub-question I was going to direct at you, Dean. So, AI and all of these co-pilots, specifically I'm thinking the one around Azure and the one for 365 and stuff, how do these co-pilots and the use of those co-pilots impact your future as a security consultant?
Interesting.
Do you think?
I mean, personally, just in general, I'm a big fan of ChatGPT. I use it for pretty much everything I do around my social campaigns and that kind of thing. And all of my YouTube videos, for example, are built pretty much around ChatGPT generated content. From a security perspective, I mean, it's going to help, as Charlie said, it's going to help the SOC analyst. It's going to help them do their job better when it comes to getting context on an alert or an incident, how far it can go to interpret that correctly. That's going to be interesting to see, because it could just hallucinate or could just get it completely wrong and give some kind of assessment that is completely wrong. So we do need to make sure that it actually works. But that's the whole point of the security co-pilot is currently going through massive testing with large organizations, and that needs to be done. Really, we need to make sure it's not just going to give the wrong kind of answer. But the concept that it can troll through that much data that quickly, within milliseconds, it can get all the context it can possibly need to make an assessment. There's no way a SOC analyst could do that.
Yeah.
So even if it's slightly wrong some of the time, that's much better in a critical incident than waiting for a SOC analyst to get all that context.
Well, it's the 80-20 rule, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
If it's 80% of the time, then actually the 20% of the time it's not right actually becomes less of a problem, because you're stopping the majority of the attack and reducing that attack vector down. Really.
And if you limit the possibility of if it's wrong, make sure that it can't do anything ridiculous like cripple a whole network, right? So if just limit what the scope of its reaction and response, so that it can't do things that you don't want it to do when it's wrong. Just assume it's going to be wrong some of the time, and then I think it's fairly safe to do that. How will it affect my job? I mean, I personally, I work in advisory, so I help customers understand how to make changes to their environment, how to increase the security of their environment. I think it might help me do my job. Just from that perspective, I don't think it's going to impact it too much, but so certainly the services that we sell will be improved by it, I think.
It's going to be an accelerator then, in your opinion, but you still need to have that foundational and fundamental knowledge about your specialist area to know whether it's wrong or right, and what to then do with the decisions and information that it's putting out, right?
Yeah, so
sorry,
I mean,
David, you wanted to...
From the Microsoft 365 Copilot perspective, I haven't used it, but I assume that would help me generate documents, which is what I do probably 30 to 40% of the time, as well as having meetings with customers and collaborating. That product is meant to benefit those types of workloads, so I would hope it would accelerate what I'm doing in that perspective.
It's about the efficiencies, isn't it? I think there's going to be an element of kind of efficiencies across the board that we're going to see, and those efficiencies actually free you up to do the more complex stuff than the laborious day-to-day tasks, like just simple things like reviewing meeting recordings and stuff. Being able to just condense that down into a manageable chunk saves, rather than watching like a company town hall for an hour, you get the actual what you need in 10 minutes. So
curious to hear your input here, David, obviously being the founder of Argos Cloud Security. I mean, can you tell us what you're doing with AI and these sort of co-pilot type things, or what maybe's on your roadmap, or where you see it going in general from a product perspective?
Sure. So we've already integrated OpenAI into Argos as pretty much a co-pilot, right? It's not a chatbot. You can't interact with it other than click a button. That's very important to me. I don't think chatbots are too important when it comes to security. I believe, yeah, that that's what our customers are telling us at least as well. So we have it. It's in at an early stage, mostly because we've been working on this bloody prompt for a very, very long time now. And like Dean said, trawling through all of that data and making sure it doesn't take half an hour for that to be done, even a little bit faster and cheaper. But it still takes about half a minute to a minute for Argos to tell you what happens in the environment and what the attack vectors are. I do believe for tasks like that, just like Dean said, AI co-pilots are going to be very valuable, and people are going to look to them to give them an initial idea of what's happening. But yeah, it's not going to replace anybody, right? And that's not at least not our intent. We don't want to replace anybody, and I don't think it's going to replace anybody. But like Charlie also said, it's the making sure that people's time is spent better, right? I put a calculation up the other day. If I think if over a year you save like less than a minute or something like that, you've already it's already paid for itself. Or over a year, a minute a month or something like that, something ridiculously small, at an average day rate of a consultant or developer, it's already paid for itself.
It's a very valid point.
The other bit that I'd just add to it is kind of going back on the efficiencies, is it almost will assist plugging a little bit of that gap of within the job market, really, for security analysts, in my view. Because I think you'll see the ability to have a junior SOC analyst, as an example, or junior engineer, learn from the co-pilot as well. So actually you almost start reducing down that big gap that currently exists within the job, within the cybersecurity market currently.
I think it might also, just on that note of, think about language barriers, right? So if, say, you've got people who need to understand the impact of a cybersecurity incident or what happened, and they're not native English speakers, if you could translate it into their language instantly without any extra effort and make it reasonably accurate, that's incredibly powerful, and it can do that without even batting an eyelid. It's very good at writing text, so that will help certainly.
Right, I'm conscious we've focused most of the first period on AI. If for the folks that are watching this in the future, maybe they're security engineers, maybe they're aspiring security architects, any advice, AI-related advice you want to impart before we move on to the next topic, David?
Oh, it's me first.
Sorry.
You still need to learn the fundamentals, right?
Agreed.
Somebody asked me just in general, if you want to get into security, how do you do that? You still need to know the fundamentals of IT system administration, of networking, even in the cloud, especially in the cloud, I think.
Yeah.
And
not secure by default.
That's a triggering topic for me. Having both AWS, very, very quite a lot of AWS and Azure experience, the whole secure by default and secure by design, it's very triggering. And
maybe we'll get on to that in a little bit then.
So yeah, you need to know the fundamentals. AI isn't going to solve any of that for you.
Learn the tools. So there are lots of features of ChatGPT that people don't know exist. Same with Security Copilot, and same with the other copilots. There'll be ways to interact with it that aren't just the initial way you interact with it. I think if you want to get the most from something, learn it, spend some time using it properly, and then make a decision as to whether it's useful. But if you just look at it, try it out, and it doesn't work or doesn't do what you want, then I think give it time. These are new tools. They're worth. There's a lot of investment going on with them, as well as lip service and in actual monetary investment. We should give them some time to see how they actually work.
Finally, Charlie.
Literally the same as Dean and David, really, is kind of learn the tools, get the fundamentals right, and keep updated, because it is a rapidly, and I can't emphasize how rapidly changing market it is, and kind of it's only going to speed up. We're in a technology revolution, really. It's the only way to put it. We're in that next stage, from an industrial type revolution perspective, and I think you've got to embrace it. Otherwise, you will fall behind, just as we've seen with people who've never really embraced cloud. They fall behind. So it's embrace it and use it and test it with things and keep updated and keep testing it. Break it.
Great advice, folks. So, in short, get to grips with it, learn it, embrace it. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, moving on then. Dean, we'll start with you because this is your topic. Talking about this time of year being like Christmas or insert other festive holiday here for cyber attackers. Do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just released a video today on that topic, and it really is the season for hacking. It's the season for successfully infiltrating an organization. And the video I put out was around identity security, because that's normally one of the initial ways in. And the point is that people generally will be more relaxed at Christmas from a security perspective. Analysts, for example, security teams will be taking time off, or at least expecting to take time off, at least trying to wind down and not, if an alert pops up, maybe not on the 24th of December, jumping into it and spending like 5 or 6 hours figuring out what it is. They're just not going to do that because it's Christmas Eve. So that's typically going to, that's essentially what cyber attackers are going to play on, and it works. I've seen it in my own career just a few years ago, at least once. I think it's important enough to call out.
So are you telling us then that fatigue then plays a part in this time of year being such seeing such an uptick in cyber attacks and successful cyber attacks for the people in the SOCs and the people that are managing these alerts? They're just tired after a long year, so they're missing.
I don't
stuff.
think fatigue. No, I think it's the expectation of having time off. Everyone expects to have a break at Christmas. It's even if you're not actually on leave, and you expect it to be a quieter period. You don't expect a massive cyber attack to come in and take all of your day and require the whole team. So just the expectation of it being quiet. Cyber attackers, why would they take Christmas off? They're gonna use that time because it's quiet and use that to get in. And even also, the effect of people partying late or generally just not being on top of their security game. They could answer an MFA prompt or click on a phishing email when they're, a little bit merry on Christmas Day. So
you heard it. You heard it here, folks. Don't take your work phone with you to the Christmas do.
Yeah, but we've all seen Die Hard. We've all seen Die Hard. It's exactly the same approach, really. Security was lax, and
it's true. Yippee-ki-yay.
I do also think this over this period, just like we've seen initially during COVID, where everybody started working from home, that's a signal that a SOC is going to see that might look legit. Because people are working from home, or people are logging in. They might be traveling overseas, and they might be logging in from different locations, where people go, that's just whoever that person logging in from wherever they are. That's probably all right, and unnecessarily questioning that at this time of year.
So, how do people do better and sorry, that's a loaded question because it may not be people's fault. But how do we collectively do better?
I think it's not at this time of year problem, right? You don't tackle that problem at this time of year. This like Dean mentioned, identity is a very common initial attack vector, right? And you need to make sure that your identities are secured and protected all year round, not just over the holidays. Network, yeah, you don't put RDP onto the internet. It's such an easy thing. But if you go into Shodan, there's hundreds of thousands of them in the cloud on the internet. So yeah, you need to fix those things before you go on holidays.
It's fun and scary to spend time on Shodan. Sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, really, it's that whole identity thing. I think the identity piece, this time last year, I'd have been more concerned with MFA fatigue as such, with the prompt coming through Authenticator. Now you've got the number matching, it reduces some of that risk down. Does it get rid of it? No, because the latest factor with the QR codes, etc. But it's about, as David touched on, Dean touched on, it's keeping your users educated, keeping them on their toes, keeping them up to date with what actually looks like a spam email or a phishing email, because we're all waiting for deliveries to come from DPD or any other delivery provider, and when you get it's human instinct to just click.
It's almost like the heart takes over because you're excited about delivery or something, and the head lags behind.
Or stressed.
Yeah.
Just on that
last minute.
On that point of the phishing emails thing, that's just a thought popped into my head just then. So for a long time, like until very recently, phishing emails were very easy to spot because there was things that made them look like a phishing email. There was like typos in them, and there was urgency and all this kind of stuff. It seems to have they've got better.
It's real tough. Oh, it's real.
It's really hard to spot a phishing email. A couple of times I've been like, I mean, it probably is, but I can't 100% say for sure.
There's a good reason for that. And we've just talked about it.
Indeed.
AI. Right?
Yep.
There's been just had that shout out to Risky Biz podcast. If you're not aware of Risky Business, amazing Australian cybersecurity podcast. They do like a news digest every week. So amazing podcast, love it. And they talked about hackers, scammers, sending these phishing texts and emails to Japan, because Japan was traditionally not necessarily a target because hackers and scammers don't necessarily speak Japanese. But AIs can now go and just translate whatever language into Japanese, and they send them over there because they've never really been exposed to them. It works.
We all come back to AI. We're going to move on in just a second, but I'll pick on Dean since it was his topic. And any final thoughts before we move on to David's favorite topic?
On the topic of this season being, no, I think just be hyper aware during this season. It is more likely that there'll be cyber attacks happening. It always is the case, and they're more likely to be successful. So if you're a normal user, be more aware of the fact that there's likely to be an attack during this kind of period. And if you're a security organization or if you're a defender, then be more aware that the attacks that are taking place are more likely to be successful for various reasons. So just be on your toes.
And I think just to kind of feed into the 2024 view is we're going to see more and more of these sophisticated attacks. These more kind of, they look like they're coming from genuine sites. So and that feeds back into the topic before with AI, because yes, we're going to use it as defenders and protectors of networks, but the adversaries are using it as well.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. All right. MFA and SSO tax, Mr. O'Brien. Do you want to get us started?
I absolutely hate products, and I don't think it's going to get much better in the future. That that just charge you for basic security things.
It's not okay.
Like MFA and SSO. It's not something that anybody should be paying for. Like, sure, you're paying for it, but it should just be part of the base tier, free tier. Anybody who uses your product gets MFA out of the box.
Yeah.
From our own point of view, our own perspective, I can tell you it doesn't cost anything.
No.
Across the board, if you break it down to the user, it might be a fraction of a cent that MFA is going to cost the vendor. SSO, so easy to set up, so easy to get going. You offload all the problems of password resets and storing passwords and being a honeypot for people's passwords. You offload all of that to the identity provider. There's no reason other than milking the customers for charging for MFA and SSO. That's my rant on that topic, and I don't think it's going to get much better.
So, we'll expand it out to the other gents in a second, but why isn't it getting any better? Surely, and then we're back to this secure by design and secure defaults and all of that sort of stuff. Why are companies, I mean, it's because they can is probably the ultimate answer.
Yeah.
But why haven't we reached a stage in our maturity from a security perspective where that's just included in the feature set?
Because procurement
Is it because
of
we can
product,
make money?
yeah, because procurement of products has nothing to do with technology. It doesn't happen at the technology level. It's a very bold statement, but again, when we, and in my past as a consultant, you might go through some products, but nobody really checks off, does it have MFA? It's not part of the checklist. Once the technologists go, yeah, the product does what it's supposed to do, then that goes up the ladder into procurement, and then they're being told, actually, you need to pay for that and that and that and that, and then they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool, sign, and off you go. These decisions aren't getting made at the technology level. That's why.
I've been the other side of the fence, and I've seen it time and time again. And when it's come to kind of architectural decisions on tool sets, that's when it's highlighted, and then you get overruled because it's the only tool that is able to do what they need to do.
And is it a deliberate act by the vendors and the creators of the? You knew where I was going. So it's just a money making act.
I disagree. Not in all cases.
Come on.
So for example, I was recommending some password managers. I was looking through password managers to recommend one to an organization. For example, there was Bitwarden, LastPass, and 1Password we were looking at. Now, obviously, from an MFA perspective, they all had MFA, so MFA was out of the question. That was across the board. But SSO, only one of them had native SSO integration with Microsoft 365 or Azure AD, and that wasn't because they charged more. You couldn't pay for the other two products to give you SSO. They just fundamentally didn't support it. So it's a business problem. They should fix it, but it's not that they're monetizing it, and they're, at least in these cases, they weren't monetizing it. Their product was based on something that didn't have that capability when they built their product, and they weren't investing in their product to make it more secure or make it support these new cloud features that are becoming available.
It comes down to lazy product design to a point as well. So, and kind of taking more of a cloud native approach to things, people will consider it by default. I think there's a mixture of both points, really, where you've got some people who will actively charge you extra for it and others that won't. Now, how do you get around this? Well, potentially looking at government compliances. So NIS2, those kind of compliance frameworks that organizations now have to start adhering to, and they're going to become more and more in. Now, maybe the special order over in the US might actually see some changes there with some of the larger organizations, because that's going to push things. But is it going to do the opposite and actually just push the price up and say to people, you need to go and buy that premium tier, when actually, again, security by design, security is kind of by default.
Just in the interest of time, we'll move on. But David, in short, if you offer MFA and SSO, stop charging extra for it. Would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a vendor, you're gonna have so much fewer problems if you just offered that. I don't know, you just invite so many headaches if you take on that load of trying to do all of that yourself or not even offering it.
And the number that are it's so easy to integrate now with Enter ID. So easy.
Yeah.
So it should be, and it shouldn't be complex to do.
You heard it here. Stop it. Moving slightly on, terrible cyber product practices. Charlie, do you want to get us started there? Maybe the lack of MFA and SSO by default is an example of one of those, but do you want to expand that a little bit first?
Yeah, so again, it comes down to products not being designed in a way that is secure, and they're publicizing themselves as a cybersecurity product.
Sounds like you have examples.
No comment.
Okay.
It comes down to architectural principles, and if you look at some of the guidelines that Microsoft produce, as an example, Amazon as well, around the secure cloud frameworks, there's a lot of organizations that just ignore them, ignore all this good practice and this good, the good things to do. And nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Maybe Dean sometimes, but nobody's really perfect on things. And but there seems to be a lack of certain organizations, certain products. There seems to be a real lack of drive to actually push things forward, and that's when you see third part. And I guess I'm talking about some of the legacy, what I would class as legacy cybersecurity products in the market. They stay stagnant, and then you get the new boys on the market that disrupt it. And then it flows into, oh, well, actually, we should do something about this. Let's acquire them. And then you get
that
into
leads
the
on
realms
to a discussion point for later, so we might as well cover it off now. So,
yeah,
I mean,
so you go in. Sorry, Carl.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So you go into the acquisition piece, and not to, well, I will do. Cisco acquiring Splunk being a prime example. It's Splunk was always a good tool. It always is going to be a good tool. Obviously, I'm always going to push Sentinel, but Splunk has a place in the market massively. Going to Cisco, yeah, they chucked money at it because they didn't have a solution. Is it going to make it a better tool? No. It's just going to delay. It's going to hamper the progress and development of it. And that's just my view on things, really, is the really good innovative tools get acquired by big organizations and they get lost. In most cases. In some cases they don't, but in most cases they do.
Be interested to hear your take on this, David, given your current operations.
Well, I'm obviously taking notes of all of these things that we shouldn't be doing. Look, there's a reason why I started Argos, right? Because I was very frustrated with all the products that I've seen in the market. I used to be a consultant in the cloud for 15 years now. I started on AWS when people were still going, what is this thing that only has 3 services, right? Nobody's going to use that. And so back in 2008. And the products that started coming up, first generation products, and don't worry, I'm not going to go next gen, whatever now, but first generations, you could clearly see we're still trying to figure out what this cloud thing actually is and how this actually works. We had all these products that went, we need global administrator to have a look at your environment, and we need this administrator and that administrator permission. And you went, yeah, okay, I can see maybe why. But that was in 2013, 2014, when nobody really knew what they were doing. Unfortunately, a lot of the vendors haven't moved on from that. We're still coming across them. But unfortunately, I'm coming back to my previous statement. Procurement doesn't necessarily happen at that stage where the people call out, look, that's a pretty bad idea. They're still getting bought, those products, right? And doing the right thing doesn't always mean you're getting a customer, unfortunately. There's lots of practices that that vendors don't necessarily adhere to. I come across that, and I have come across that so many times when vendors don't understand data residency requirements, right? When I was working for European companies, and you talk to vendor, and they go, "Yeah, we take security seriously, that thing, right?" And you go, "Okay, cool. Tell me how that thing works." "Yeah, so we ship your data over, so we ingest that. You ingest that where?" "Yeah, so we send that over to the US. That's where we're hosting on that."
Nope.
And you go, "You're out. That doesn't work, right? You don't understand you don't understand how things actually work." And I think that's hopefully going to change going forward by a lot of new legislation just coming in. Right, data residency used to be we would really like you to not do it. Now, in a lot of cases, it's you can't, and as in we're not allowed to use you if you do this.
Dean, do you want to wrap us up before we move on?
Yeah, I've got 2 quick points. The initial question, the initial topic was bad, poor cybersecurity practices by organizations,
products.
Yeah. Password complexity or password limiting, right? You know when you try and set a password, it says it can't be more than 15 characters, and you're like,
"What year is this?" is my usual comment.
Yeah, exactly. That is insane, and there's even some where you can't use certain characters because obviously they're storing the password in a format that will be broken if it's just ridiculous.
It's going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
That's akin to not having MFA in the first place and insisting on text message or email for your MFA codes. Stop doing it. Sorry, Dean, carry on.
I saw one example where, like, if you set the password as like drop table or something, it would just crash the entire website. And also web tracking cookies, just because, right? If your website doesn't benefit from tracking cookies and doesn't benefit from the analytics and performance you get from cookies, why are you collecting that data? Why are you doing that? It just doesn't make sense.
Because it will be valuable to someone.
Stop it.
Exactly. Stop it. All right.
We have to your point on the passwords, even down to government agencies, especially in the UK. So I'm going to call someone out here. Child Maintenance Service. When I had to set up my account for Child Maintenance Service, I had to do it over the phone and give a password over the phone to somebody to type in. I couldn't do it in a portal. And I did that. I literally did what Karl is doing. It is ridiculous.
On the
And
number of things I've said, stop that too. Stop that.
Did you give them a 100-character complex password?
oh no, because it could only be so many characters long, and it couldn't have any real complexity into it either. And this is dealing with quite sensitive information.
That's
it's got
wild.
my kids' details in it, and it's just ridiculous. And I'm meant to trust a call center.
Yeah, no.
And then you phone them up, and you've got to give your password. It's like,
no.
Really?
Yeah, we're short on time. We could probably spend a few more minutes.
I could spend hours on it.
Terrible cybersecurity practices or product practices, but
within local government or central government.
Move on. Let's quickly move on before Charlie gets himself in any more trouble, and talk passwordless and passkeys. So let's just spend a few minutes on this. David, do you want to get us started?
Yeah. I think, there's. So we don't use passwords in our organization. We're all passwordless. We have
FIDO keys.
UTF keys, FIDO keys. We use YubiKeys. Problem with that is that most of our customers, where we go through their GRC process, don't understand.
Lagging behind.
Again, not a technology thing, more a compliance thing. When we do have to go through GRC with partners, MSPs. I'm not necessarily talking about large enterprises. I'm also talking about MSPs and MSSPs. Security people, where the procurement team send us questionnaires and go and ask for our password complexity policies. And we go, we don't have any because we don't we don't use passwords. And there is no option to go, we use passwordless. I'm hoping that this is going to get better. I'm really hoping, but I'm pretty sure seeing how all the other things go. We only have 20%, according to Microsoft, 20% of all the authentication events against Entra have MFA on it, any MFA, right? Only 20%.
Yep.
And the secure defaults aren't necessarily going to make that any better because they only apply to the administrators going forward. And what is an administrator? What is privileged, right? If you can read certain things, that can be very privileged. Passwordless, absolutely important, critical going forward. To have strong, something that can't be phished, right? Like Charlie said, with the number matching, the location information in the MFA prompts, all of that, super important going forward. I'm hoping to see more uptake of it, especially where it actually matters, so that compliance actually starts enforcing it. And I'm not talking compliance frameworks because I'm not a fan of them. Personally, they give false sense of security. But really that procurement teams actually start enforcing it, so that vendors have to start doing it and more organizations have to start doing it.
Dean, just on that passwordless and passkeys, before we move on to one final topic before we wrap up. Dean, do you want to talk to us about Microsoft Authenticator and the move to phishing resistance, which is coming or in preview or something?
Yeah, just a more high-level point. I think this could be the year of passwordless. We've been talking about it for a long time. This genuinely could be the year. Not this year, 2024. Could be the year of... There's not a lot of time left in this year, if I'm honest, now I think about it. It could be 2024 could be the year. Because Microsoft, as you say, with Authenticator and Apple as well, now supporting passkeys, that it just seems to be the right players in the market are actually taking it seriously. So I think it could be the year for that. Authenticator. The problem with Authenticator, I think, is that yes, you can move to authentication strength policy so that you can actually say that you need to be of a certain strength. But migrating an organization from the legacy MFA, the Office 365 MFA, where most of them are still, because when you click MFA, that's where the portal takes you. It's still there. It's even though it says don't do this, that's silly. It's still the default portal when you go and look for MFA in Azure. So people are still using that today, not even knowing that it's a very bad idea. So I think some organizations, and certainly Microsoft and people in the know, are now able to use authentication strength and be more secure. But the majority of organizations are still enabling per user MFA. They're still using the legacy capabilities. And I think we need to target those. And Microsoft are, right? But not enough, in my view.
So that's where the consultants come in. But we'll not spend much time talking about that because we need to move on. We're coming to the end of our roundtable discussion. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And look at this link that Dean's going to put up again. Give some money to the Raspberry Pi Foundation on behalf of the Festive Tech Calendar, folks. So let's just spend the last 3 minutes here giving our final thoughts and maybe festive wish list items for 2024. Charlie, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, so I think the adoption of passwordless passkeys is going to be critical for 2024. What I would like to see is actually consumer tools moving that way by default. If you can change a user's behavior at the very, very beginning of everything, before they even get to the enterprise, you become into that, they're used to consuming it. We've seen it with iPhones, iPads, tablets, etc. within the home environment. So if the vendors, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons, they do it by default, or the Facebooks even as well, they do it by default and it's got to be turned on and configured, we'll see it roll into the enterprise. So for me, that's the biggest task, is get the consumer market bought in, moving forward in that passwordless passkey environment, and we'll see an enhancement in security overall.
Awesome. David?
I'm hoping, if I could wish for something, I'm hoping that there's going to be more focus on the supply chain. And when I say that, I mean the SMBs, right? Enterprises need help, but they have so much money that they can throw at the security problem. They can afford all of us, right? There's plenty of SMBs, of small and medium-sized businesses that can't afford any of us for a day, right? Their security budget would be blown out by spending a day with us. And if we can see more focus on helping those by having security by default, rather than spending money on consultants or having to have a dedicated, even a single dedicated security person. And we're talking all the time, we're talking about CISOs and SOC teams and analysts. The majority of organizations on this planet don't have any of them. But they are the ones that eventually start working in that chain for the banks, for the large insurers, for the military, all of that. Those are the ones we need to help. And I would really like to see focus on that.
Awesome. And I'd something to that as well, David. NGOs, the NGO market, because the data that a lot of NGOs and charities transact is incredibly sensitive and critical data. And that could be just a group of trustees. It could be one person. So that's an area that I'm really passionate about in seeing that investment in, and it falls massively into that SMB market.
Dean, final thoughts?
Yeah. So wish list. This is really selfish. As a person who creates video content is incredibly difficult to amend once it's out there. To Microsoft, please don't rename Intune again, or Defender. Just don't, please. I can't take it. I really, that's my wish.
Awesome.
Got more co-pilots. thing.
Just don't rename stuff. I don't mind adding content. Adding content's okay, but going back and I can't change a video once it's published.
Not yet.
Okay, folks. David, you have birthday celebrations to get to, and I have to go and check if my children are in bed. So, thank you for tuning in the future now, 15 days time. It's been a good discussion. We probably could have talked for several hours on even just a couple of those topics. So maybe we should do this again as we progress through 2024 and see how we've been doing with some of our requests and our wish list items, and see whether those terrible cyber product practices are still going or whether people have listened. Thanks for joining in. Please donate to the Raspberry Pi Foundation if you can. And thanks again to the Festive Tech organising team, Gregor Sudi, Richard Hooper, and the rest of the team. Have a great remaining great time of what remains of 2023, and we'll see you on 2024. Thank you.
See.
Thanks, everyone.
Just waiting for Dean to find the button to turn this off now, are we?